So, Mark, how Greek wine is priced? Does it offer good value for money? General question. I'm sure you will break it down and tell us what you think.
Generally speaking, yes. I would say that pound for pound, the interesting Greek wines offer more interest per euro than interesting wines from a lot of other places that have maybe got premiums already built into them because of, you know, the reputations of the PDOs or the appellations. Take Chablis, for example. You know, there are some brilliant Chablis. Of course there are. And there's actually, Chablis has been an appellation which has seen a real renaissance in the last decade or two. But, you know, you pay, there's like a built-in premium to buying a Chablis right from the word go that you don't get from a lot of the Greek appellations. And so a bog standard Chablis or a really great Ribolla from Catalonia or a really great Vidiano from Crete or whatever else it might be, I'll take the Greek example, you know, every time. So I think, yeah, my general answer to that is that there is a lot of fantastic value in Greek wine. It needs to be caveated though, that answer, because I'd say that at the moment, we probably have between 20 and 30 wineries in Greece that I would buy wine from. And
why not more?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that every year that number increases, but it's not increasing at quite the rate that I would like to see it increasing, if I'm quite frank. But you know, there's more happening every year. It's great, and also people who have maybe been on one track before have shifted track and are improving all of the time. I won't name names on that front, but you know, there are some winemakers whose wines I didn't like 5 years ago, and now I'm actually really starting to enjoy them. So, you know, I think there are improvements that are happening, and you know, that number maybe next year will be 40 wineries, and the year after it'll be 50 wineries. You know, let's see. But when I say that Greek wine offers great value, pound for pound, I'm talking about that group of wineries that I like to buy from. I think that outside of that, Greek wine, you know, is like every other country. It's not just about Greece. It's everywhere. I love Spanish wine, and I love 30 or 40 Spanish growers.
Some of them are very expensive. Some of them are very...
Exactly. Some of them are very prosaic.
Undervalued, perhaps.
Yeah. There's the undervalued ones, and then there's the overvalued ones, and then there's also the really sort of cynical commercial wines that are not particularly interesting in any way to me. And there are some very underappreciated wines. And Greece has that.
Can you name an undervalued Greek wine, a wine that you really like, and you think that the price can even go higher?
From a specific producer?
Yes.
Okay. I think, and Mary Pateras, who people in the UK will know, who runs Eclectic Wine, who are, you know, a wonderful company, massive champion. She'll probably kill me for saying this because the price will probably go up after this. But I think that Panagiotis Papagiannopoulos at Tetramathos, I think he makes maybe the best value wines in the world. I mean, the price of some of those wines, it's as if he's forgotten a zero. I think
amazing, yes.
And I think that
they're superb wines. They're very good, yeah. And
they're great, and they're very authentic, and they're very original, and they're representative of a very unsung, underrated terroir. You know, in that north area of the Peloponnese, which is not Nemea, which is not Mantinea, which is, you know, exactly. And it's, as you know better than I do, you know, it's a gorgeous, beautiful place. But it's also an incredible, you know, high altitude vineyard area with old vines, very old vines, and incredible terroir. And I think that, you know, the expressions that he makes of Reditis, you know, again, an underrated grape variety, which he makes some of the most interesting examples of. Ioritico, which is, you know, much more famous from the down the road.
Yes.
But he makes it in a way which is very expressive, very tender, and very, you know, just really beautiful. And I mean, that's just the start of the conversation. I think his Retsina is arguably the best in Greece. I think that his amphora wines have such a delicate touch to them that they are wines that are they're authentically amphora wines rather than wine that has been put in an amphora in order to
just
call it an amphora wine and to say that. So
they're soulful wines.
That's a great way to describe them.
Soulful wines. And I'm very happy because you discussed about Aegialia. My latest post in Instagram was the slopes of Rhoditis in Aegialia, which is an amazing terroir because, you know, we have such a diversity of places. And for me, personally, I think that the high altitude vineyards will be the next big thing, a big thing for Greek wine. And
you have a lot of them. You have a lot of them that are not really spoken about in the mainstream conversation. But even and you know, you've been somebody who's taught me a lot about this. But even in a place like Nemea, you know, there's Nemea.
There's Nemea,
so many different, and then there's Nemea. You know, in terms of altitude.
There's Asprokabos, different things. Fantastic. But since we talked about the advantages, can we talk also, and be honest, we need to be fair about the disadvantages of Greek wine? What is not right according to your views? What can be improved?
Just to continue that value conversation and to bring it into the sort of the other side, because, you know, we spoke about Atramathos. There's lots of other examples, by the way, of wines that are wonderful value. You know, I had a great conversation with Katerina Bozanakis when I was over in Athens a couple of months ago. God, it seems like about 10 years ago now. You know, and, you know, her wines or her family's wines are not the cheapest wines in Mantinea by any stretch, but they're some of the best, and they shouldn't be the cheapest wines. They're great value for money. That, you know, and people need to separate this idea of cheap and great value. You know, something which is authentic and is brilliant and is delicious, and, you know, and something that means something. If a fair price is charged for it, then that's great value for money. And, you know, and so I think there are lots of examples where Greece definitely is on the right track there. And then I think there are other places that puzzle me slightly. Like Tinos. And I know you're a big fan of Tinos, and understandably so, in terms of the terroir and the potential that the Tinos vineyard has. Certainly with the Certico, it's demonstrated already that there's a lot of potential there. I have a bit of a problem with the idea that that the wines of Tinos should have parity with the wines of Santorini, by not in qualitative terms, but just in pricing terms. Sorry, in general terms, the Certico from Tinos. Well, listen, I'm talking about once it gets to the UK market. As wine buyers at Noble Rot, you know, when Dan and I and our sommelier team, and we sit down to look at the wines from Tinos and compare them to what we are already buying from Santorini, price-wise, there is nothing in it, and sometimes even with certain examples, the price is, you know, is north of what's being charged on Santorini. Quality-wise, I don't think that they're anywhere close. Yes, there are exceptions, I'll grant you that, and certain wines in certain vintages have performed very well, fair enough. But I think as a general rule, to start a new winery with a new vineyard in Tinos, and then to be charging effectively the same prices as wines from 100-plus-year-old vineyards that have a track record of quality and that are demonstrably world-class in, you know, not universally, but certainly in some examples. For me, there's something broken there about the value calculation.
The value chain. Can I put my thoughts in the wines of Tinos? Because I've been in the island many times and I've seen the progress. I think you're right, because what happened is a lot of producers followed the success of Tinos winery. So they started a new winery, and they needed in their mind to put their Assyrtiko, their wines, next to the value of Tinos winery. So this created a little bit of confusion.
Well, it creates an artificial sort of price for the wines. And listen, if you start a new winery, it's expensive. You know what I mean? So you've got bills to pay. I get it.
But I have to be honest, and the terroir of Tinos is fantastic. Is one of the kind. If you come and if you see the conditions there, how hard is viticulture, the challenges, the winds, and everything, it is, I cannot say on the same level, but on parallel universe with Santorini. Different things,
different,
but
exactly.
equally. Of course, it doesn't have the volcano, but I'm really passionate about Tinos and other islands on a different context.
Me too, mate.
Yeah.
And listen, I think that, you know, from what I've read about Tinos and what I've tasted,
yeah.
which is pretty much everything, you know, that gets produced on Tinos each year, I'm making my business to try and taste it all. You know,
Yep.
There are a lot of very interesting projects there. My concern, and you and I have spoken so many times about pricing on Santorini, and you know, the fact that the economy there, in terms of the wine economy, with the separation between winemakers and growers, and the fact that there is so much pressure on the agricultural land, what that means in terms of the grape prices, what that means in terms of the production of the wine, and then the bottle prices as we get them into the market. You know, we've got a real, those of us that love Santorini and love the wines of Santorini, we've got a struggle on our hands to keep up with the escalation in prices. You know, and we've spoken many times about, you know, how do we communicate the message and and how exceptional this place and these wines are, in a way where we can keep up with each year another 20% or whatever it is getting thrown onto the bottle price, and that's at our end of the conversation, not at the consumer's end of the conversation, where, you know, it'll be magnified. So it's difficult. And what I'm saying with Tinos is really a reflection of that. If we're struggling with that part of the conversation in Santorini, then an Assyrtiko like the Voila Assyrtiko that is made by Lyrarakis on Crete, which has been one of the best-selling Greek wines that we've had at Noble Rot. It's been fantastic for us.
Yeah.
You know,
it's seriously underpriced. Like
it is underpriced. Yeah. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting, and I'm sure the guys in Lyrarakis would not suggest that wine should be talked about at the same level as the top examples from Santorini or even Tinos. But you know, that wine will increase in price because the market is hungry for that wine, and the market will adjust the price upwards. And what I'm saying about Tinos is that I feel that the pricing is a bit artificial, and I'm not sure that represents value. That's all I'm saying. The wines are very good, and the place is incredible, and the people are great. But I feel like we're just a little bit out of sync there, you know. And there are other examples. I mean, but to come back to the flip side of that,
to the question, yes,
you know. So, what are the disadvantages? The value thing in certain places is one of them. I think, for me, the biggest disadvantage that Greek wine has is that we're coming out of it to some extent, but we're still in this place where the Greek wine conversation is always looking elsewhere for its cues. There's too much in the way of international varieties, international styles, comparisons. You know, everybody talks about, when people talk about Xina Mavro, the second or third sentence is either comparing it to Piedmont or comparing it to Burgundy. And I've been guilty of it myself from time to time, because, you know, we're also in a period where we're trying to communicate about Greek wine to people who are not familiar with it, and so we're trying to make it familiar and so on. But I think it's symptomatic of this wider issue, which is that Greek wine is always trying to cast itself in the positively, of course, but in the shadow of things that are happening elsewhere. And I think
maybe security, maybe insecurity, but maybe a thing of the past now. We should talk it in a positive way, not.
Yeah, but it takes time, doesn't it? And, you know, and I think, insecurity is an interesting word, because the Greeks, I love the Greeks. I spend a lot of time with Greeks and want to spend as much time as I possibly can in the future with Greeks. But the Greeks are an amazing combination. And I'm generalizing here, of course I am. I'm stereotyping. But there'll be lots of malaka going on of people who are watching this and saying, what the hell's he talking about? But
No way.
I find the Greeks a wonderful
I have great
combination.
Feedback.
Between pride and this sort of insecurity, maybe is too strong a word, but this sort of you know, the Greeks, they love to please. Philoxenia is this kind of, you know, hospitality is a Greek, it's a Greek invention, effectively. It's something which, you know, the Greeks they want to show their love and they want to be loved in return. And that's a wonderful trait. But I think in the wine conversation for too long, it has meant that there has been, that people have pandered a little bit too much to what happens out there. And the Greeks have this incredible legacy and this incredible inheritance, which I think they should be more robust about saying, you know, this is a Casino Mavro from Nausa, from Amindion, from Rapsod, whatever, you know, and let me share it with you with that spirit of hospitality, with all of that love and everything, and all of that pride that comes with being Greek. But let me not try and pretend that it is this or that, or, you know, whatever, in a French context or an Italian context.
Okay.
And listen, I get it, because, you know, the 20th century was shit for all of Europe, but it was very, very shit for the Greeks. And so, you know, they came out the other side of that at the end of the century, joining the European Union and finally being able to look outwards and saying, you know, and embracing what was out there. And so we had a generation of winemakers that kind of had to update things, and they had to pull Greece into line with what was going on in France and Italy and the US and other places. And so that has been a necessary part of the conversation. But hopefully now we're coming out the other side of it, and that authenticity that we talked about earlier on will be a central part of the next generation of Greek winemakers.
Okay, Mark, question: how we can engage now more people, more sons, more key persons in Greek wine? So what are your suggestions? How do you see that?
I think the first thing I would say is that Greece has to sort of double down on what it, as a wine country, you know, what its raison d'etre is. This is not, you know, the production of Greek wine, like we said before, in terms of hectareage, is half the size of Bordeaux. This is not a place for bulk wine. This is not a place to, you know, to be trying to compete with people making, you know, cheap Merlot. And there's always a place for that in the domestic market. I understand that. But, you know, really...
But not in an international market.
I mean, who wants or needs a Greek Chardonnay, which is slightly more expensive than, you know, a bulk wine from France or from Spain or from, you know, whatever? I mean, that is not
very few exceptions.
Yeah. That's not the contribution that Greece has to make to the wine world. You know, what it does have, as we've been discussing, is amazing terroir, amazing history, amazing indigenous varieties, and an amazing culture of people who, you know, who want to share that and want to ally it to the gastronomy and, you know, and all of the other great things about the Greek experience. So I would be focusing as a country in general on quality, on authenticity, on individuality, as far as the PDOs and the PGIs are concerned. And that's myself. Sorry.
What is her name?
That's Olive. That's our Jack Russell puppy. She's from Cyprus, actually. So
okay.
She's probably heard me speak about Greek wine.
Elia.
So yeah. So to come back to the question, yeah, I think that in order to get more people interested, I think Greece has to really sort of settle on its idea of what it's about. And after that, it needs to make the conversation with the outside world needs to be one of pride in these varieties and these terroirs, but also one with an open heart and with you know, open arms to teach people about what those things are, and to welcome people, as the Greeks always do, to come and explore them for themselves. Because ultimately, when you have 61,000 hectares and that's it, you know, and spread around all these diverse, amazing places, you know, the opportunity is for detailed conversation and you know, authentic expression of these things. It's not for come and get your cheap Pinot Grigio here. And I would love to be able to say that Greece hasn't been doing that, but in a lot of instances, it has looked to compete on price, and it has looked, you know, I don't want to say, I don't want
You
to get
cannot
into,
avoid that.
yeah, it's just,
yeah.
it's part of the history of Greek wine. So we're coming out the other side of that now, and I think we need to drive on with it and sort of focus this on the message, and sort of, you know, that's how Greece will get more and more people interested in what it's doing, by being itself.